come around here? I don't think she read it.
Yes, sir.
Is also a commissioner. Means the world. Thank you. And you'll send that to us? I'll give you my contact so you have all my contacts as well.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, good morning. If I could have everyone's attention. Good morning. Good morning. Checks, 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 checks. Are you good? Checks, checks. Checks, checks. Okay, media's good. Checks. Okay, little different situation this morning. The bathrooms are here, so if anybody needs to use it, please go now. And not in the middle of, the governor speaking. We'd appreciate that. Please silence any cell phones, watches, tablets, anything that makes noise. All questions should be, if he takes questions, it should be the credentialed media in the back. Please no photography other than the media. And if you guys have any questions, please see Grace or myself. We are with the governor's office. Thank you so much for coming. Checks, 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 checks. Clear? Clear? I know, they can't hear very well. Checks, checks. Checks, checks. 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 Checks, 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 checks. Is that better? Okay.
Test one. You hear me? Check. You think they got it? They got it?
Knock on the door. I'll check it. Checks, checks. Checks, checks. 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 Jordan. Checks. 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 Yeah, it's on. Checks, checks. Checks, checks. 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 No, it's on. It's over there. Yeah. I know. Well, it's the speaker. Yeah. Checks. 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 Louder. 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 Checks. Checks. Okay. Nikki, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Checks. 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 If we can have everyone fill their seats, please. That way, if we have any empty seats, we can get them filled. Checks, checks, checks. Okay, we have 2 empty seats. If I can have them filled, please. Okay, do we have... Good. Anything else? Anything else? Okay.
morning. All right. Well, it's great to be back in Miami Beach. It was really bad weather in Tallahassee all day yesterday. I know there was some stuff and all around the state, and it's a little bit rainy, but we bring a ray of hope to make sure that we're going to do everything we can in this legislative session to keep Florida on the right track. And there's a lot of different things that we've been working on that we'll continue to do, that we've been able to highlight. I mean, one, I'd like to point out that you look at what's going on in Washington with all the amount of debt that they're racking up. You know, we've paid down 25% of Florida's debt just in the last 5 years. So our debt's going down, it's going up federally, and your share of the national debt as a U.S. citizen is over $100,000 per American. Your share of Florida's debt as a Florida resident is about $600. And so, you know, not that you'd ever be forced to pony that up and pay it, but if worse came to worse, like we would be able to handle this in like a day, right? So that the liabilities, everything that you look at these other states, we've done it well. We're going to continue to cut taxes. We're going to continue to make sure that we manage the budget well. We're also going to continue to ensure that we're investing in things like education. Our education is ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. Part of that is because we've got very affordable, high-quality higher education, which we're proud of. Tuition is very manageable for Florida residents. We've held the line on that. We'll continue to do that. We also can get Bright Future scholarships. So there's a whole bunch of stuff with that about affordability, which is important, but also education choice. Here in Miami-Dade, you have more choice than probably anywhere in the country. Certainly for an urban district, it's not even close when you have the choice within the school districts, the charter schools, the private scholarships. That's really empowered parents, and it's allowed us to produce much better results. So we're going to continue to do that. In my budget, you know, I called for an even bigger increase in salaries for teachers in Florida, $1.2 billion. We did $1 billion last year. No one's ever been able to do that much money. Since I became governor, we've now done a lot, and we'll continue to do that. We know it's important. We also are going to continue to do what we've been able to do for environmental restoration. If you look, I was out in the Everglades agricultural area a week or two ago, where we actually started having water flowing through one of the stormwater treatment areas. That was a pipe dream 10 years ago. Now you're seeing all this stuff. You're seeing water moving like God intended. So that's important. We're going to continue to do it. But I think of all the things that that we've done well, one of the things I kept being reminded of is the fact that we really take pride in being a law and order state. We take pride in being a state that supports the people that wear uniforms, and we take pride in maintaining public order and making sure that people have good quality of life to be able to live their lives, to be able to raise their kids if they have kids, to be able to retire in peace and tranquility. Those are things that are all really important. You're not seeing that in many parts of this country, unfortunately. And when people had flooded into Florida over these last many years, I've talked to so many of them that just did not feel that their public officials were keeping their communities safe. I mean, you know, you look at places like San Francisco where you can rob the stores blind and they don't do anything. I've met people who've moved to Miami Beach from San Francisco who had their homes broken into, and the perpetrators weren't prosecuted. Even though they were caught, they weren't prosecuted. How is this supposed to be happening? People are, sometimes when they're charged for crimes, they just get released back onto the street, and it's like a revolving door, and that really causes the quality of life to collapse. And we've seen once great areas in our country really have some of the worst times that they've ever had. So you can look around there, know what has failed, and know where we have to go as a state. And one of the things that I saw in these areas, and that I think people here are familiar with, is how the homelessness and the drugs and the crime have just really made it miserable for just law-abiding people in many of these parts. You can go to like Los Angeles, and like there's just like tent cities are everywhere on the sidewalk, on public areas, and it's not something that you can actually have a vibrant society when things like that are happening. And so we're here today. The legislature is considering doing something to just ensure from a statewide perspective, we're not going to let any city turn into a San Francisco. Not on our watch. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to have protections for people. And I'm joined here by the mayor of Miami Beach, the new mayor, Stephen Minor. He's of the same mind. He doesn't want Miami Beach to turn into some of what you've seen. We understand the policies that have led to that. And I think the thing about it is, if you look, we're the third most populous state in the nation, but we don't have any of the 10 highest homeless for cities. Those are primarily congregated on the West Coast, places like L.A., San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, even Denver, as you get into the Rockies. Of course, New York City has that. And the question is why those? It's policy. It's the policies that are creating this type of an environment. And in fact, we had over the last 10 years, homelessness has gone down in Florida. It's gone up in some of these other states. But at the same time, we understand this stuff can change very, very quickly. So we feel that if the legislature is willing to lean in on this, that we want to be there to be able to offer support. But it's got to be done right. It's got to be done in ways that is focused primarily on ensuring public order, ensuring quality of life for residents, ensuring that people's property values are maintained, ensuring that businesses are able to operate unobstructed without these problems bleeding in. So today I'm here to say that we are going to work with the legislature. I don't know that they have a product that's final that is going to pass muster quite yet, but we're going to work with them to ensure that whether you're in Miami Beach or whether you're in Miramar Beach up in Northwest Florida, whether you're anywhere in between, that we are going to keep our streets clean, we're going to keep our communities safe, and that will require at least some of the following measures. We need to prohibit camping on all city streets, sidewalks, and parks. We just can't live like that in the state of Florida. We will create, and look, it's not going to be an issue here in Miami Beach with your mayor. We'll work together to ensure the streets, but not every local government may agree. I think most will, to be honest with you, because I think people have seen the problems in other parts of the country. But you never know down the road. So you do need to have the ability of the state government. They have to have tools to be able to ensure that these rules are being complied with. And that's very important for that. I am open to providing financial support for communities for things like sheltering, also for things to try to address some of the mental health problems that we see with people on the street. I think that's totally something that we can agree to do to be able to help deal with some of the problems of this, as well as the substance abuse. And that was the thing, when you're walking the streets of San Francisco, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to do that recently. I actually did it over the summer. And I had been talking a lot about the failures of San Francisco because I was hearing a lot of it secondhand from people that had moved from San Francisco. And these are people that a lot of them really love the city and remembered when it was great. And then they couldn't believe it, they had to leave. So I would talk about this, but then when you actually show up and see it, and you show up, and within 2 minutes of being on the ground there, you see somebody defecating on the sidewalk publicly. That's just not something that we, and that just happens as a matter of course. See people using drugs, shooting up drugs on the street, open air drug markets, all this stuff, crime happening without anybody really being held accountable. That is just not something that works. But you look at that, and yes, policy is facilitating that, but clearly there is an underlying issue that you're seeing with mental illness, and that has not been addressed very well. And I think that we can absolutely work together to do. But my bottom line is this. People that live in Miami Beach, people that live anywhere in the state of Florida, I take it as like kind of the dad test. Like, can I just take my kids and just walk down the street to see shop? You should be able to do that every place without having to worry about homeless or being accosted by somebody. So I think these protections will be very good for Floridians. It'll ensure that we don't see any part of our state descend into the madness that you've seen in places like San Francisco, New York City, or Seattle. So we're going to work very closely with the legislature. I'm confident we're going to get a product that's going to add really strong protections for the people throughout the state of Florida. It's fine to sit here and say, oh, we don't have any of these 10 cities on the map. We don't have, in terms of the 10 most, we have a lower crime rate than them. And it's true. All that is true. But, you know, part of what leadership is to look to see what hurdles could be 5 years out, 10 years out, and are we putting in places structures to ensure success. And I think what they've done in those other jurisdictions, they've really incentivized the results that they're seeing, and they're incentivizing failure. I want to incentivize success here in Florida, and this will be a big part of it. So stay tuned on that. I'm confident we're going to be able to get something across the finish line, because I think there's broad agreement that that it's worth doing something and really leaning in and getting ahead, because we see if there's a wrong turn taken, just how destructive that can be. Before I invite up FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass, we'll also hear from the mayor as well as Betty Bahar, who's the owner of a chewing gum ladies boutique here in Miami Beach, and we'll tell her story. I just want to say this, because we're in early February. There's obviously a lot of people that are in the state now, of course, but that's kind of normal. As we get into March, we start to get into the season of spring break. And I've told the mayor proactively the state will provide resources that the city here needs to be able to ensure that spring break does not turn into some melee. People come down and enjoy themselves, a variety of different ways you can do that, of course. You know, we have a lot to offer in this state, and we're proud of that. But we're not going to let the streets be taken over. We're not going to let the residents who live here have their quality of life diminished. We're not going to allow businesses to be hurt by public disorder on the streets. Or any of this type of activity that we have seen in recent years. Now, we sent a lot of people to Miami Beach to help with Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, but I'm here to just say, you know, these are resources that are available now, and we want to get ahead of this, because we don't want it to happen and then have to come in and stop it. We want it to just be a smooth period of time for people to be here. You should not even really know that it's spring break or not, because things should be orderly. So we'll have resources at both Highway Patrol and Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We'll be working with not just Miami Beach, but wherever in the state, although we know that we had some really serious incidents that we had to deal with here in the last couple years. So that's my pledge. We're pledging full support on it. We don't want to have a situation where it's not safe to be in a given area. Businesses can't function. You're having to close early or all this stuff. That's not what this is about. So the safety and the well-being and the quality of life of our residents is our first priority. And if people want to come and visit, that's great. But you got to do that in a way that is, I think, conducive to everybody's quality of life. So stay tuned on that. Hopefully, we'll do like we do with hurricane, have a lot of preparations and not have to use, most of it. But we're going to be here to do what we need to do. So, all right, I'm going to have some folks come up. So first, we're going to have Mark Glass from FDLE.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, everyone, for being here. Under this governor that we have, Florida is safer than ever before. Safer. And House Bill 1365, which is going through the House and the Senate, will help us stay that safe. Citizens living near homeless camps and people visiting businesses near the homeless camps, by proximity, become more vulnerable. House Bill 1365 makes all our citizens safer by ensuring security is present at homeless camps and prohibiting alcohol and drugs. Governor, in Florida, you and our legislators make it possible for law enforcement to stay proactive in these areas. And that is why Florida has experienced one of the largest decreases in homelessness across our great country. We are so fortunate to live in a law and order state. And once again, Florida is a national leader in safeguarding the prosperity of our citizens. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, for your leadership, particularly in making the state of Florida a law and order state, and that's certainly what we are striving for and are accomplishing here in Miami Beach. This is a law and order city, and our commission is steadfast in making sure that continues that. And I've spoken to the governor, spoken extensively with his team, and the commitment is unwavering to make sure that we have the resources no matter what, including spring break, to make sure we don't see the same issues. You know, a couple of years ago I was talking to a business owner who was telling me about a level of guilt he felt with a homeless individual who slept in front of his storefront every night. And he said he would have to clean up every morning, but he said, I did it willingly. He said he would give him some food. He said, but I used to be able to have conversations with him. I used to be able to talk with him, even some politics. He says, but by the end of those 4 years, he had disintegrated into a person I didn't recognize. And then one day, he wasn't there anymore, and he never saw him again. He said, did I help this person? Was I compassionate to this human being? Or did I facilitate his downfall? You know, in Miami Beach, every 3 years we do a comprehensive survey on a number of issues, from policing services to cleanliness to resiliency, and there are 30 different items that our residents are questioned about. And the last 2 surveys we did, number 30, both times, meaning the worst rating we got, was how we address the homelessness issue. And that's changing. That's changing now. I'll talk a bit about what our commission recently did, but several years ago I proposed legislation that our commission passed where we're offering employment opportunities to homeless individuals. I proposed legislation that our commission passed where we offer pre-diversionary rehabilitation programs to homeless individuals, to people with mental health issues, with addiction issues. And we transformed our municipal prosecution team. The governor mentioned law and order, making sure we don't have that turnstile. When I looked under the hood of our own municipal prosecution team in 2021, we only had an 8% success rate in convictions. And through the help of my legislation and our commission, we are near 90% today in a successful. And it's not just the number. Our residents are telling us they see the difference. Our businesses are telling us they see the difference on the street. And I'll tell you a quick story why it's also a compassionate issue. This has happened more than once, but in one particular case, one of the defendants, we offered a lower prosecution charge if he would complete a drug test. And he was drug-free after a certain period of time. And he had to keep coming back every several months. And he told his defense attorney and our prosecutors he had not been drug-free for over 10 years, and now he was getting his life back together. That is compassion. Our commission in October passed very strong and, I believe, compassionate legislation. What we proposed and we passed is that if a person is homeless and is camping on a public streets or public right-of-way, and they are offered shelter and they refuse it, the police officer has the discretion to make that arrest. I mean, think of what it takes for a person to be out on the street, to be sleeping and encamping on the public right-of-way, to then have a police officer offer them the help, to give them the lifeline, and yet still make the decision, no, I'd rather be arrested than take that help. That is good legislation. I was one of the sponsors, and several of my colleagues here were sponsors as well. Thank you, Governor, for your support. I do want to just take the opportunity to particularly name my commissioners who are here. Commissioner David Suarez, Commissioner Laura Dominguez, Commissioner Tanya Bott, Commissioner Alex Fernandez, Commissioner Joe Magazine. We're a team. We do things together. No one person can accomplish alone, and it's really a privilege. But also, as much legislation as we can pass, we still need our law enforcement out there, our police chief, Wayne Jones, our city manager, Alina Hudak. And there's so much more to say. The governor also been with our law enforcement, with our fire department. Hatzalah is represented here, a volunteer service that the governor was instrumental in allowing them. And I'll just finish off thanking my team, my chief of staff, Veronica Coley, my senior advisor, Daniel Summer, communications, Daphne Saba, but most important, my strongest team member and supporter, my wife, Shannon, who's right here in the front row. Thank you again, Governor. You have a partner here in Miami Beach. We look forward to continuing our law and order ways. God bless you all.
Hi guys, I'm Betty Bihar. I was born here. I've been in business for 39 years, and I have so many things to thank the governor for. First of all, we survived COVID. Thank you. And we had to reinvent ourselves, and we did. And every day we were on a street where people walk, families walk, people walk, everybody walks there. And when we had the homeless issue, it was not safe. There were people with mental issues and many, many, many stories. And I see such a difference. It's safe to walk now. And I so appreciate that you protect our police department, because that's so important to me. And we're still in business after 39 years, thanks to you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're looking forward to being able to make really good progress here. I think that this is the right approach. I think it's an approach that is puts the residents of Florida first and foremost and their quality of life, but also is compassionate and understanding that there are some serious issues that are at play in our society that drive some of this. And if we're willing to invest in things like mental health and substance abuse, helping local governments managing some of this, of course, in a way that's not going to allow people to be having the law-abiding citizens having their quality of life infringed upon, that can be a win-win for everybody. We could be addressing a problem, but also increasing the safety and quality of life of folks. Also, just want to make a couple comments. One is, I've been following, I know a lot of people down here have been following things that are happening in the Middle East, and when I hear things out of the White House that they may be unilaterally recognizing something like a Palestinian Arab state, I just wonder, what planet are we living on? Are you kidding me? I mean, you have a situation, Israel's the only country on earth, they get attacked and fight wars, and somehow they're supposed to give up all this land? This has been going on since the late 1940s. It's the same song and dance. The fact of the matter is, they were attacked on October 7th. And what Hamas wants to do is to have a second Holocaust, and they want to destroy Israel. So why are we saying that because of that attack, or why is anyone saying that somehow that should force Israel to somehow do something that would probably lead to its destruction over the medium and long term anyways? I just think it's ridiculous, and I think it just shows an ignorance of history. I think it shows an ignorance of going back thousands and thousands of years of the connection of that land to the Jewish people. So I've been proud as governor. When I ran, I said we would be the most pro-Israel state in the United States. We have fulfilled that promise in all that we've done. Second thing is just we have a huge issue in this country on our southern border. You can't be a country if you don't maintain control of your own territory. And yet this has been going on really for many, many years, decades perhaps, but it's never been this bad. And they have now unveiled a piece of legislation in Washington, and I think you'll people are starting to point out, what a farce it is to basically say that you only shut the border down once 5,000 people a day come illegally, which is about 2 million a year. So that's basically legalizing illegal immigration. And there's so many other things that are wrong with it. But I just think taking a step back, what it shows me is it just shows me the contempt that these people in D.C. have for American taxpayers. I mean, the amount of money they want to send all around the world, the amount of money that they're saying that they're going to use for border, but it's really going to go to facilitate more of the problem. I just think the whole thing is a farce. The fact of the matter is the president has the authority to secure the country's border. You don't need a new piece of legislation to do that. Just do it. And if you did it, I think a lot of people would be pleasantly surprised that you did it. But what this is just another dog and pony show out of Washington. It will not solve a problem. It will just exacerbate the problem even further. And so I don't think it's likely has much of a chance. But, you never know with the folks that we've got in Washington, D.C. nowadays. Okay, anybody have any questions? Hey, how are you? I haven't taken a couple weeks to digest and reflect. I got right back in the saddle here. We've been making things happen every single day. That's just what we do. We did do a lot in the 7-8 months that I was running, but it was after the legislative session. But that's just the type of a guy I am. Whatever I have an opportunity to make a difference, I'm going to do. You're not going to see me go on like some hibernation where I'm like saying, oh, woe is me. That's just not how I am. And so we're happy to have been back. I think I was back in the office the next day. And we've been putting points on the board ever since, and people here can expect nothing less than me. We're going to continue to be very energetic. We're going to continue to get a lot of things done. I will say, though, that being the most active governor in America, we've worked very hard. But the difference between doing that versus a presidential campaign where you're doing 10 interviews a day, going all these stops on the buses, it is a little bit different. And so even though we've been very active, I think that this is good. It's a difference between talking about things and actually doing things. And I'm a doer more than a talker. We'll have to see. I mean, I'll talk to the mayor here. I mean, there's probably a handful of spots that I think that this is the one that's been the most concerning over the last couple of years. There's a couple others. Fortunately, a lot of the other areas have done pretty well. We were just in a situation, I think, in Florida. I mean, this isn't like our first rodeo with spring break. I mean, this has been going on for decades. And different areas used to be, Daytona used to be, so then they changed some stuff. Panama City, they changed some stuff. So you kind of live, but I think what happened in Florida was when COVID hit, starting 2021, we were like the epicenter for everything because people knew they could come and live their life. And so in terms of wherever you would have gone spring break, it's like Florida was number one on everyone's list. So I think that created some unique pressures in places like Miami Beach. But bottom line is we've got a lot of communities that have dealt with this for a long time. We want to be helpful at the start. And we will process any request for support. I will say we had a lot of Florida Highway Patrol that have been very, very helpful. Florida Department of Law Enforcement. If there's other agencies that need to pitch in, we're open to that. But I would say those will probably be the two main agencies that will help. And I think we can get ahead of it on the front end so that you can come, but you're not going to be able to do some of the things that have been happening. And if that's made very clear at the front end, I think it's going to be much smoother for everybody. Glenna.
Hi, Governor. Welcome to the zip code. Interesting that you had this. I was reading 1365 as you were talking, and across the day is where the 10 cities are.
Right.
And 1365 goes into a choice for a county to set up a camp and security and facilities for homeless. And I wonder how you see that
Well, I don't know that we've necessarily embraced those particular provisions. I think we've laid down our marker is we're going to protect Floridians and their quality of life, their freedom, the public order, and their businesses from having homelessness, crimes, and drugs impinge on that. And that's what we have to do. That is number one. Then once you do that, there are certain legal requirements that you do have to meet. I mean, one of the reasons why you can in Miami Beach arrest somebody is because you are offering them a shelter. Courts have said you have to do that. I'm not sure that's what the Constitution actually says, but you know what? This was the Warren Court, and they just made it up as they went along, so why not, right? But we're mindful of that because I want to do whatever we do, I want it to stick. I don't want it to end up being, we know there's always going to be some judges that rule against us no matter what, but as you go on appeal and everything, we want it to be able to stick. So how is that done? And I think what we're envisioning is providing some support for counties for additional sheltering, providing some financial support for both substance abuse and mental health. But what we don't want to see in the legislation is any incentive to create homeless camps, particularly in areas that would interfere with the public conducting normal business. And so if it's a county where they're going to do something that's out of the way, I think what they're trying to do in that bill is provide a lot of accoutrements that are required to probably make it less attractive to do that. But then if they went ahead, then they'd have to do all those things. But I think that's all still a work in progress. My bottom line is we just want the streets safe. We don't want homeless to be an issue in everyday life. And that's what it's become. It's overwhelmed day-to-day life in some of these cities throughout the United States. And that, first of all, it's not good for the public, but it ultimately isn't good for the people that are out camping on the streets. That's a dead end. That is not going to lead them to having any of these problems solved. So there's going to be better ways to not only protect the public, but also to help some of these individuals who some of them do have issues that need to be addressed, and we can be protective, potentially can be constructive in helping to address. Yes?
Yeah, hi, Governor. Any other issues you can think of in terms of helping out with spring break? I know you mentioned a lot of possibility or any other ways in which you can see the state helping?
I think a lot of it's going to be based on the requests we get. We want spring break to go smoothly, and I'm willing to devote resources to ensure that it goes smoothly because I understand how it impacts restaurants, hotels. It affects a lot, and these are people's livelihoods. And you have spring break, which can be a great time for Florida businesses, but then if things go south, then it ends up becoming really bad. So we're on standby to accept whatever people are asking. We're going to talk to communities throughout this state, but I do think that this is probably going to be the top priority just given the last couple of years. I think there's a couple other spots around the state. I think most of them have leaned in and I think have done it pretty effectively. So let us know how we can be helpful. It's not for us to just say you have to accept this. You don't have to accept any help. If you want some highway patrol, we'll help you. If you don't, that's fine. If you think you got a handle on it, I know the mayor here understands that we need to head this off, and I think that's the right approach. So he's going to have our support to be able to make sure that we have an orderly few weeks here. You know, it's a great time to be in Florida. Obviously, once the calendar turns, January, February, March, April, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to do. We're fortunate to have so many people that come and spend their money in Florida. Heck, even the criminals spend their money. Did you see the story? You had CNN. They were saying, like, there's these theft rings with a lot of the illegal aliens, and they steal, and they're like, well, but they tend to go down to Florida and spend the money, and I'm not sure how that works, but they're like, but why don't they just steal in Florida? They're like, because they'll go to jail if they steal in Florida. So, thanks, guys. We'll see ya. Thank you.